Om Vishnu Praya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaur Pani Pacharne Nivishesha Shunyavai Pastita Desha. And then just start by reading verse from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, verse 68.
Hare Krishna, Gagandeep Mataji, you're muted.
Yes, sorry, Prabhu, I don't know how it got muted.
Yes, Mataji, I can hear you now.
Good.
All right, so I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 66, the conclusion of Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, the verse that Prabhupada quoted very frequently and spoke on very frequently. It deals with the essential subject of surrender. That's what I wanted to talk about mostly tonight, is the all-important subject of surrender. I was talking to a friend yesterday about surrender, and it's everything that we do revolves around this central point of surrender to Krishna. Everything depends on that. All our advancement in Krishna consciousness is based on Krishna's mercy primarily, but also our surrender and willingness to take Krishna's mercy. And so I'll read this verse. Sarvadhaman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Moksheshami Mashitaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. I'll just read a paragraph or two of the purport. Maybe I'll read the whole purport, maybe. Anyway, Prabhupada translates it in the Bhagavad Gita as abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And in the introduction to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada translates the verse as just give up everything else and surrender unto me. Whatever we consider a religion within this world, well, that's good. Every human being is meant to have some form of religion, but even that, Krishna says, don't just abandon all that, abandon everything. Ultimately, we have to abandon everything else and surrender to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna basically means like the formal order of sannyas is making a declaration to Krishna, to the spiritual master, making a declaration to the world that I'm not involved in the material world anymore. My body is still here. I still act within certain guidelines of material life, but I'm declaring that this is not my place. I'm here. My only duty now is to serve my spiritual master wherever I am, in heaven or hell, and preach and try to help other people to become devotees and surrender to Krishna. So whether it's the formal acceptance of the sannyas order, but actually all the ISKCON devotees, all the devotees are have accepted the fact that we don't belong here. This is not our place. All these things that we thought up until very recently, we thought these things are very important. It's very important that I have some forms of sense gratification. It's a house, a family situation, a job, a car, nice clothes. I thought these things were important. Now I understand that these are all temporary things. They have nothing to do with my eternal spiritual life, my eternal relationship with Krishna, and that's what I'm concentrating on now. Ultimately to the exclusion of everything else, whether we become so advanced in this life that we really have no attachment to any type of material situation or sense gratification. Of course, we know many great, we have the example of Prabhupada, and in our experience, at least in audio and visual form, and quite a few devotees that met him and spent time with him, initiated by him. But most devotees these days have his association through his books and through audio and visual form. And we have his example. We've all heard so much about his life and through his disciples and through his biography and different disciples' reminiscences of him, which are very valuable. He said that in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says that during Lord Chaitanya's time, there were many, many, many disciples, followers of his, who kept notebooks and diaries about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, but most of them didn't survive. There are several, of course, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat. There are many authorized books and stories of Lord Chaitanya which did survive, and so. And those are crucial to us now for our understanding and advancement. But so at this time, there are so many devotees who have recorded in audio and visual about their times and experiences with Prabhupada. And many disciples have written books about their experiences with Prabhupada over the years, and they'll be saved. They should be saved and preserved and read and listened to for as long as possible. 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, who knows how long we'll have so many of these things available to us. We can't predict the future, but at least now, so much knowledge of Prabhupada is available to us so easily. A couple of clicks on the computer and you can see anything about Prabhupada. And so these things are very, very important. And so I'm going to start reading this purport. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion: knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Super Soul, knowledge of the different types of orders and statuses of life, social life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense control, mind control, meditation, etc. He has described in so many ways different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him. He should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. I'm going to talk about, I think that's all I'll read of the purport for now. I'm going to talk about surrender. And the thing is that this is the most important topic. It's the basic central point of all the topics of Krishna consciousness. And there's only one problem that we have as conditioned souls. We only have, you could say, I have this problem, I have that problem. Prabhupada would say that, lack of money or lack of this or that, those aren't the real problems. The real problems are birth, death, disease, and old age. He says an intelligent person should ask, is there any solution to these problems? Even if I get a lot of money, but I still have to get old, I still have to get sick, I still have to leave this body and take another body. So these are the real problems of life, birth, death, disease, and old age. But those problems are all a result of our original problem, which is ultimately the only problem we have, and that is that we have rebelled against Krishna. Prabhupada said that the Jiva soul, the fallen Jiva souls, that's us. We thought in the spiritual world with Krishna and Krishna's love, Krishna Loka, everyone is serving Krishna very happily and joyfully, and in complete surrender. And by misuse of our minute free will, we thought, well, I'm as good as Krishna. Why shouldn't I be served? Why shouldn't I be the independent enjoyer? Why always Krishna, Krishna, Krishna? And so that's the cause of our being here in the material world. That's the cause, that original envious feeling towards Krishna and the desire to take the place of Krishna, meaning to be free to enjoy ourselves independently from Krishna. And we all have that spirit of enjoyment because we're part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is always enjoying unlimitedly. So we have that natural desire to enjoy. But when we thought, or when we think, still, but I want to enjoy on my own. I don't want to be the servant. I want we have the term the spiritual master, or spiritual master. So the master is not a nice term in the material world. People will think master, but I don't want a master. I don't call, no man is my Lord. I may obey somebody at work or whatever I have to do. Or if I get in the army, I have to obey orders in the army. But no one is my master. And but the devotees, we use that term spiritual master willingly and happily because we're helpless in the material world without a bona fide spiritual master. Prabhupada was reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita the other night, and Prabhupada was saying that everyone is an eternal servitor of Krishna, but having forgotten Krishna, trying to act as the independent enjoyer, we're suffering in the material world, and yes, we're suffering in the material world, and we're all helpless. We're wandering around, and we can't be happy here. We're always in anxiety. And there's an example that it's like if a little kid is out somewhere, a very little kid is out somewhere with his parents, and he feels fine as long as he's with his parents. But if somehow he becomes separate from his parents for even just a few seconds, and he can't see his parents, then immediately he's in complete anxiety because he feels unsafe, he feels insecure, he feels lost, bewildered, very unhappy, only for that reason that he can't see his parents. So as soon as they come back and he's with them again, then he feels okay immediately. There's no adjustment period. It may take him a few minutes to stop crying, but immediately he'll start to feel safe and secure again and confident, because his parents are big and they know what to do and he depends on them, so he feels safe and secure. So in the material world, we always feel lost and helpless and always full of anxiety, having become, we're never actually separate from Krishna. Krishna is always in our heart accompanying us, but we feel separate from Krishna. We forget Krishna. We don't even remember that there is such a person as Krishna. So, which is actually a very strange thing, because nothing exists except Krishna and Krishna's energy. Everything, the air that we breathe, the body that we use, our minds that we think with, everyone that we know and relate to, the whole world, the sun, the moon, nothing, everything is Krishna's energy. Nothing exists except Krishna and Krishna's energy. So for us to have forgotten Krishna is a strange thing indeed. It's like if you said, if you asked somebody, or if somebody told you that, I don't believe that there's such a thing as the sun. And you would think, well, that's a very strange thing. He doesn't think there's such a thing as the sun, but everything depends on the sun. All life, everything depends on the sunshine, the heat and warmth of the sun, the light of the sun. So if somebody says, I don't believe there's any such thing as the sun, you would think, that's a very strange thing. How could you not believe in the sun? But in the material world, everyone is forgetful of Krishna. By design, we're made to forget Krishna. It's not an accident that everyone is forgetful of God. We're all forgetful of God because we have to think of ourselves as independent in order to try to enjoy the material world independently. So if we're always thinking that, no, but there's God and he's really the only enjoyer, the only controller, the Lord of all, the Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the enjoyer of all sacrifices. I work very hard at my job day and night, but to take care of my family. But I'm not the real enjoyer of my hard work, and my family, I take care of them, but they're not meant to be the actual enjoyer of my sacrifice, my hard work. God is, and He is the Lord, the controller of everything. I mean, I don't control anything, but I want to think that I want to control everything, and I can't be anybody's best friend, because he's an illusion in the material world. I'm an illusion in the material world. We all think that everyone is in distress in the material world. Is the blind are leading the blind, and the blind lead the blind. Everyone falls into the ditch. So I can't help anybody, and if I can't, and they can't help me, they're also an illusion, they're also blind. So and only God can help us or can help anyone. Only God can be the best friend of me, only God can be the best friend of this other person. I can't be the best friend. Husband and wife, they get married, and you're my best friend, you're my best friend. We can only be each other's best friend, or like an apprentice best friend, or helper best friend, if we help each other in establishing our reawakening the knowledge, or reestablishing our relationship with the actual best friend of every living entity, Suryadana, Sarvabhutana. Krishna is in the heart of every living entity, and he's everyone's best friend. My friend, your friend, everyone's best friend. So we can have a very peaceful, friendly relationship with each other as long as Krishna is in the center of our relationship. But if I want to be a conditioned soul, if I want to be the independent enjoyer, the independent controller, then I have to forget about Krishna, because then if I'm always conscious of God's presence, really conscious of God's presence, then I'll be aware, constantly reminded that I can't be the independent enjoyer, I can't be the controller, I can't be anyone's best friend independently of God. So we're given forgetfulness by Krishna so that we can think of ourselves as being independent. But so we're given forgetfulness purposely by Krishna, and Maya accepts us in her realm, and we interact with her and with everyone else in the material world on the basis of everyone's forgetfulness, willing forgetfulness of Krishna. So that has to be, that's the only problem. The problem is, the original problem is rebellion against Krishna, and the result of that original fault is forgetfulness of Krishna. And so that's the problem. And there's only one problem, there's only one solution. And the only solution to that problem is that we, by the intervention, by the purposeful intervention of Krishna's pure devotee, then we're given that knowledge of us, of Krishna, is reawakened in us. Of course, he told about the first time I saw the Harinam on Boylston Street when I was 18 years old. It was a movie theater in the Prudential Center. Came out of the Prudential Center, a nice summer night, and we heard the drum and kartal across the street. And we said, let's go see where that noise is. And so we would go across the street, and there's a big, joyful, fire up Harinam out there, like 30 or 40 devotees dancing around. And it was such an amazing thing to see. And immediately I could understand that this is something that's not of this world. I didn't know what it was, but I could immediately understand that I don't know what this is, but it must have to do with God. And that's all I could think. And so from that moment on, my memory of Krishna was awakened. There was no real concrete knowledge at that point. I didn't know what I had seen, but I knew something had changed. Something really, I had seen something really life-changing, important. And so that's that's why Prabhupada left India. He said, you can't imagine how happy I was in India. He is living in Vrindavan, he's a pure devotee. I just heard him talking the other day on a conversation in March of 1966, while I was still uptown in that small room he rented for some time, and he had recorded it, so I was listening to the recording of it, and he was telling the people there, he said, I'm not comfortable here in New York City. I'm not happy here. Happy meaning it's not a pleasant situation for material. But I'm not comfortable here. I'm not happy here. I was so happy in Vrindavan, but he took the trouble, the great trouble, to leave Vrindavan at the advanced age of 70 and come here just so he could intervene on our behalf with Krishna and bring all the fallen souls to Krishna's lotus feet again, to remind us that our eternal relationship is with Krishna and that we can never be happy unless we're reestablished in our eternal relationship with Krishna. So that's Krishna intervenes in our life through the agency of his pure devotee. One verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, no one is more dear to me than the person who preaches this message to my devotee. Never will there be one more dear to me. And Prabhupada says that, well, but first we have to make devotees out of the non-devotees. Then I'll, Krishna says, preach to the devotees, so I'll preach to the devotees. But we don't want to, we're not trying to remain a small society. Krishna consciousness is meant to become dominant all over the whole world. And it is becoming more and more influential in the course of time. So it's come so far only in the last 55 years since Prabhupada came here. And who knows what the ISKCON movement will be 100, 200, 500 years from now. Anyway, it takes the intervention of Krishna. Krishna reminds us that I exist. I'm here. You forgot me. You forgot me. You've been neglecting me in forgetfulness for so long, so many births and deaths in this material world. Prabhupada says, since time immemorial. It's not eternally. Eternally, we're the spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and we can return to our spiritual position in the spiritual world with Krishna. But for so long, since time immemorial, we've been neglectful, forgotten Krishna. And so Krishna is saying, I exist, I'm here. You can come back to me. All you have to do is chant Hare Krishna, follow my instructions in disciplined successions, as I've given them in the Bhagavad Gita, and you can very easily come back home, back to Godhead. Yeah. So that's our duty here. So that's our position. So we have that great hope. Not only a great hope, but a great promise. Prabhupada, there's many occasions where Prabhupada assured his disciples, assured his followers, his disciples, that you will go back home, back to Godhead. So we have to have confidence in that fact, and therefore base all our activities around that one central point of purifying our existence, purifying our minds. One of the first Sanskrit phrase I learned when I first went to the temple, it was, I had gone up to college that semester. When I came back on the Christmas vacation, I visited the temple, the old Boston temple, and I was there, and I loved it from the beginning. And I knew that this is my place. This is my place is in Krishna consciousness. And so we were taking prasadam, and one devotee was reading from one of Prabhupada's lectures in the Back to Godhead magazine. And the Back to Godhead magazine used to come out, but each temple used to get thousands of them every month, and they would distribute them very freely. They cost the temple like 25 cents a piece or something like that. They were very nice. Anyway, he was reading an article from Back to Godhead, and one of the phrases I remember was Cheto Dharpanamar, dust, cleanse the heart from all the dust accumulated for years. And so that's our problem. We're pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, but our consciousness, our heart, our Krishna consciousness is covered by the dust, by the dirt of the material illusion, of Maya, of the desire for sense gratification. So that dust has to be cleared from the mirror of the heart, Cheto Dharpana Marjana. So, yeah, so and then we can go back home, back to Godhead. In this life, Prabhupada said, you don't even have to wait till the end of this life. You can go back to Godhead in this life. Because Krishna isn't limited by time and space, or that's the material. It's not like Krishna is like, oh, that's the material world, I can't go there. He'll have to wait till he comes back to Goloka Vrindavan before he can see Krishna appears before us. He appears before us in the deity form, in pictures. There's so many pictures of Krishna and Balaram and Mother Yashoda and Radharani, so many pictures. And he appears before us in Prasadam, the taste of Prasadam, and in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the transcendental sound vibration. And Prabhupada quoted that verse frequently, Golakera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. So the chanting of the holy name, the transcendental sound of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is directly coming from the spiritual world. It's not a sound of this material world. And so Krishna is appearing before us all the time. And as time goes on, we'll understand that more and more. And that's why we can go back to Godhead, even in this present material body. You don't even have to leave this body to go back to Godhead. Go back now. So we just have to believe it. There's one place in one purport that Prabhupada gives to one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs. Right now the song escapes me, but Radha Krishna Bol. But one of the verses is, as soon as you accept that, I forget the exact translation, but as soon as you accept that the name of Krishna is Krishna, then all your material troubles will be over. And Prabhupada, it's a pretty big claim. It's a pretty big claim. But Krishna is God, so he can make that big claim. And Prabhupada says in his audio purport, you can hear it. He says with great emphasis, he says in that place, so just believe it, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that we're the eternal servant of Krishna, that the name of Krishna, is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is non-different from Krishna. The name of Krishna is Krishna. One of the big offenses to differentiate between the holy name of Krishna and Krishna himself And one of the incidents that I recently read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya, as a youth, had his school, and one of his students was commenting on the whole chanting of the holy names, the Hare Krishna mantra, and he was saying that people, he was differentiating between the name of Krishna and Krishna himself, and he was saying that the commentators on the holy name, they exaggerate the claims of the holy name, the benefit that can be derived from a holy name, because they want you to be attracted to it, they want you to chant it, so they exaggerate it. And Lord Chaitanya, when he heard that, he immediately ran and jumped in the Ganges with his clothes on to be purified by that offensive interpretation on the holy name of God. So the holy name of Krishna is Krishna. There's no difference. Prabhupada said you chant Hare Krishna and Krishna is dancing on your tongue. And in this day and age, not only in this day, but always, but we see so many devotees, like the Sadhu Sangha program, which you didn't have this year, but so many festivals and kirtan gatherings, and devotees like Ram Roy in New York City with his men. We see devotees who can sit and or stand and dance, and sit and play harmonium and kartals and mridanga for hours and hours. Ram Roy and his men, they go out for 6 hours every single day and chant Hare Krishna 6 hours. And that's after they've chanted their rounds and everything. Anyway, so it's so impressive to see the devotees just chanting with such concentration and dedication. And somebody might think, oh, these are ordinary devotees. Yes, maybe we're ordinary devotees, but ordinary devotee is a very great thing. And there are so many devotees in ISKCON who are far from ordinary devotees. There's no such thing as an actual ordinary devotee. All the devotees are great souls. But within our experience and in our day-to-day lives, we have the association, at least in audio and video form, if not in direct association form, we have and that we have too. But we have the association of so many advanced, great, pure devotees who are so intent on simply chanting the holy names of Krishna with great determination and enthusiasm. And so we see that these are very great, pure devotees who love to chant Hare Krishna. If you love to chant Hare Krishna, that means you love Krishna. Yeah, so anyway, and Prabhupada actually gives the fact that the devotees chant Hare Krishna for hours, or sometimes many hours every day. The same 3 words, there's only 3 words, 3 names, Hare Krishna and Rama. And the fact that devotees chant those 3 names so much and for such a long period, every single day, he gives that as proof. He said, this is proof that the holy name is transcendental, because it's a very logical, easy to understand proof. It must be transcendental, otherwise no one could do it. And of course, the old, well, I won't get into that. But it's a proof that we chant that Krishna consciousness is pure and transcendental and purely spiritual sound vibration, because otherwise it would not be possible. And Prabhupada says very logically, he says you could take any other kind of music, like you may have some favorite classical piece or rock and roll piece or rap piece or jazz piece that you love before you came to Krishna consciousness. And you can listen to that for once and you say, well, I used to love this song. And you can listen to it once or maybe twice, or maybe you can listen to the same song maybe for a half an hour. But after, it won't be long at all before you'll be sick of hearing the same song over and over. But devotees, but the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you can chant endlessly all day, every day for the rest of your life, for eternal time, and never become tired of it, because it is directly Krishna. And Krishna is the most wonderful, is infinitely wonderful. Prabhupada often says in his lectures, he would say things like, Krishna, with so much feeling, to say Krishna is so beautiful, he's so kind, and so the mundane materialist or mundane religionists, they'll think that why God all the time? That must become very boring. I want they think like that. They think like people who take devotional service to God very seriously, they think, well, those are very strange people. Those nuns or priests or those brahmacharis or brahmacharinis or sannyasis. These are very strange people that they center their whole life every day around God. And they think that, how can they have any fun? How can they have any excitement in life? They think, oh God, that must be a very boring life. And but the devotees, we don't think like that. It's not boring, because Krishna is the most wonderful person. He is infinitely wonderful, and he is ever fresh and ever youthful, and he's always so exciting to be with. And he's our best friend, or best lover, or best son, or best master as his servant. And he's such a good friend, such a good lover, such a good son, such a good master, that he's so exciting and so wonderful to be with all the time, and more every day in newer and newer ways, at every moment, incessantly, and it never ends. It never ends. The wonderfulness of Krishna, and the experience of our relationship with Krishna is our eternal soulmate. Anyway, so yeah, and I'll just say one more point, and a couple more points, but I'll try to go quick and see if there's any questions or comments. I just heard Prabhupada, he was talking about surrender on this lecture. It's very early, it was also in 1966, before 26 Second Avenue. And he was saying how he was talking about surrender. And he says, we're so accustomed, so used to saying no to Krishna. For so many lifetimes, we've been saying no to Krishna. No, I don't want you. No, I won't serve you. No, go away. No, leave me alone. And we've been doing that since time immemorial. And now surrender means we say yes to Krishna. It's a very simple thing, the idea of surrender. There's nothing complicated about surrender to Krishna. We stop saying no to Krishna, and increasingly we say yes to Krishna with as much dedication, as much conviction, as much commitment to Krishna as we can manage right now. We can't claim to be pure devotees or ecstatic lovers of Krishna right now. That will come in the future as we become purified. But right now, we depend on being convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada, and disciples in disciplic succession are Krishna's representatives, that I'm his eternal servant. And we become convinced of that, and with a strong sense of commitment and responsibility, we accept the idea that it's my responsibility, to my duty, to my obligation to surrender to Krishna. So we take that up in a serious way. That's what we're doing. That the devotees aren't sincere. All the devotees are very sincere and very dedicated, and trying really, really hard to be good, surrendered devotees. So we accept that that's what I want. That's my duty. That's my obligation. My eternal obligation to Guru and Krishna to act like that. We do it. And there's one letter I heard. Prabhupada wrote to one of his disciples, Shivananda, who was the first disciple to go to Europe and start a temple in Germany. And Prabhupada wrote in one letter to him, he said, it doesn't matter what service you do, he said, as long as you do it with a whole heart. A whole heart, that's like another way of saying dedication, with devotion. So we surrender to Krishna. We serve him with a whole heart. Whether it's making garlands or doing kirtan or taking care of a temple or raising your children in Krishna consciousness, we serve Krishna wholeheartedly. And then we can go back home, back to Godhead. This is our natural place. It's where we belong, where we're meant to be. We accept each other. So, a couple minutes, if anybody wants to say anything. Any question or comment? If not, I'll talk.
Hi, I have a question.
All right.
In the Gita, it says Arjuna talks about how what's the line? He says the mind is faltering, stubborn. I find it as difficult to hold as the wind. I really like that line and that whole dialogue. I mean, of course, I love the whole book, but I'm wondering if you could talk about, it's kind of two parts. The first part is once you have sort of realization of Krishna and knowledge, is it inevitable that eventually you go back to Godhead? And what is the interplay between trust in Krishna's mercy and our own faith? Because we can't really do it without Krishna, but because it's all Krishna, but we still have to work. And
yeah, we have to, I mean, the thing is, what was the first part of the question again, real quick?
The first part is it inevitable?
Well, is it inevitable? we have to do our part. We have to, Krishna is trying really hard to drag us back home, pushing us and pulling us and urging us, coaxing us and instructing us, chastising us. But it's not a one-way street. Krishna, we're doing our service. We have to serve Krishna with surrender and dedication. But Krishna is really working hard on us too. It's not by our own strength. Krishna is doing everything within his power to help us come back to him. And that's a short answer, but there's only a minute or two. But that's a very important point. It's like, I give the example, it's just like if somebody has, when you have little kids, a baby, and the baby after a little while, he tries to start walking. So the parents don't just sit there and watch them try to stand up and say, oh, that was a good try, but you fell down, you didn't make it, try again. They don't just sit there and watch the son or daughter try to get up and walk. They like pick him up and like hold his hands and pick him up and help him take his first steps. And they, look, you're walking. And then if they let go, then he falls down right away. But then they pick up his hands again and help him again. So it's sort of like that the spiritual master and Krishna are, we're in that sense, we're like babies, just learning to be good devotees again. And we have to do our part, of course. We have to surrender. But as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Prabhupada quoted that verse so frequently. So we definitely have to surrender. But Krishna is doing his part. The spiritual master is doing his part or her part. And yeah, it's like, I like that example. The parents helping their baby to learn to walk. But we definitely have to play a role. We have to want Krishna. It's not a spectator sport or some idle thing that we do, like, oh, I don't have anything to do today, so I guess I'll chant Hare Krishna. It's not like that. It's that we have to dedicate ourselves. And, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to stop it. It's time for kirtan now. Karuna's been staying here for a while.